Hello guys, welcome back to the Sportsman Untitled Extra. I'm joined by Gab Sutton and Benjamin Bloom, and today we're going to discuss the 5 best available players in the Championship and if and where they could make the move to in January. We've had a look at the table. We've discussed quite a few names in the build-up to this. So, Ben, do you want to kick us off with a key name you think could make a move in January?
I think the key thing to say is how hard the market is in January, and it's really hard to do things that make an impact permanently. You know, just before we were preparing this, we were talking about what actually happened last year, and it was only Morgan Whittaker going from Plymouth to Middlesbrough and Matt Grimes going from Swansea to Coventry that were transfers within Championship clubs. We saw a lot of players coming from Europe into the Championship, maybe because English clubs don't want to sell at that point in the season. So it's a difficult market. I guess we talked about him all summer in Hayden Hackney, and you're telling me there's only 18 months left on the deal. Although, if that was going to happen, would that not be at the end of the year? But then if a Premier League club who wants another 100 million quid TV money next year wants to drop, 25 million now? January the money goes up, doesn't it?
Sure.
Maybe do we discuss Hackney again? But I'd feel a lot more secure if I were a Middlesbrough fan about the hometown hero there staying than I would have been in the summer.
Dare I suggest Rob Edwards picking up the phone from Premier League side Wolves and wanting to come knocking for a star
I don't think Steve Gibson would answer that particular call.
Or the price would be rather elevated, don't you think?
200 million potentially. I think maybe that was the case. Another midfielder in the Championship, Gab, though, whose contract is running out and his team are doing very poorly, hasn't played too much this season, Gustavo Hamer at Sheffield United. He was linked with Leeds. Dare I suggest a return to Coventry City, top of the Championship?
Possibly, yeah.
Leeds could really do with someone in that profile, couldn't they?
I think so, yeah. I've spoken to Sheffield United fans. There's definitely a feeling that Gus Hamer isn't necessarily the type of... He's an unbelievable footballer and top-end Championship player and definite Premier League ability. Maybe not someone you necessarily want in a dogfight. And there's a school of thought for Sheffield United fans that his contract's running out. Maybe see somebody they could sell for big money and then use that money to reinvest in January and get the 4 or 5 players that Sheffield United probably need to make sure they stay up. So I could understand why United might want to cash in on that one.
I think he's a big name for us to include here because he's got 18 months left on his contract and his value is only going to go down if he's got 12 months left in the summer. If Sheffield United get relegated, that value is going to plummet further. I think he's got to make a move now, I think, to kind of...
I agree with Gab, though. He's a bit of a luxury player. Mark Robbins very much set up a very solid base behind Hamer and obviously Gyökeres there, and you kind of need to be a side with the resources and the capacity to do that. It worked well at Middlesbrough. Maybe if they sell Hackney, they can sign Hamer to replace him, but we're going round and round. It does feel like he might well stay in England if he does go somewhere, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think looking at the bottom of the table is potentially the best way to look at things because clubs are at their weakest and they might have saleable assets. None more so, I think, than Josh Sargent, Ben.
Well, seems ridiculous, isn't it? Because many argue the best pound-for-pound, saleable, high-value striker in the Championship. I believe the number was over 20 million euros that was turned down from Wolfsburg in the summer. And, I mean, it's easy to be Captain Hindsight with Norwich 23rd in the league. But to your point, Simon, if you want a quick sale to give Philippe Clement some new players, you do this. The problem is, if Ben Napper, the Norwich sporting director, is signing the players, they've not done a good job. And the big problem for Norwich is they seem to have a mixture of players that have been good and possibly are going to be good, which leaves a gap of players who are going to be good right now. So, yeah, maybe shipping out Sargent, but they're going to get their pants pulled down on the price if they do that because everyone's going to know they have to sell and they'll get low-balled, won't they?
Yeah, I think from Josh Sargent's point of view, there's obviously the World Cup in America coming up. I imagine he'd want to make a last push to become part of Mauricio Pochettino's plans with the US. So there could be an appeal for him to either go to a Premier League club or, to be honest, I think based on the first half of the season, you're probably looking more at top-end Championship. I'm not sure Ben Napper would be keen at selling to Ipswich after the reaction to the Marcelino Marcelino Nunes.
Feels like we've been here before.
Yeah, I mean, he did. To be fair, he did sort of defend his decision to sell Nunes to Ipswich, whether you agree with that or not. But I can't see it happening again. I suppose I'd maybe throw it over to you, Simon, with Coventry. Would you take Josh Sargent for the second half of the season and beyond?
Yeah, obviously you have to say yes, don't you, in terms of what he's done in the Championship and how many goals he's scored. But in terms of competing for a place in the America squad, he's then up against Hadji Wright in a domestic sense as well for a place in the Coventry team.
All the teams that don't need goals, it's Coventry, isn't it?
There is the thing also with, sorry, go off topic slightly, Patrick Bamford was training with Coventry and the Coventry owner decided he didn't want to sign him. He's gone to Sheffield United, and there is that case of you don't want to upset the balance too much of adding in too much mix. So I would say it probably is very unlikely to happen.
Faustino Spria into Newcastle in the Championship.
Showing your age there.
Yeah, very much so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, what a player he was there.
A name who we have talked about as well a little bit this season already, big money rejected for him in the summer from Coventry, Charlie Hughes at Hull, Ben. Ceiling is immensely high, definitely a future Premier League player, probably going to be in an England squad sooner rather than later, but can Hull keep hold of him for a little while longer?
It feels very Brentford-y, doesn't it, that they'd go in. Brentford are very good at going in before everybody else and still paying the top dollar, but it's the unicorn, isn't it? English, left-sided, potentially centre-back, and I don't know where we are with Mr. Ilachali and funding and embargoes and things of that nature, but you would think, as much as they didn't want to sell to Coventry. Remember, there was Bobby Thomas linked with going out, so I think there was that part playing into it in the summer. But yeah, he's the guy. He's the high ticket one. But again, it's January. You know, you want to do the deal in the summer where it'd be worth even more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We talk about teams potentially going championship to championship. That feels unlikely at this stage. But when Premier League clubs come with that big offer, sometimes it's too difficult to turn down. But we should also mention Hull have been stung by selling players in January before, haven't
Bowen
they?
and Grzycki,
Bowen and Grzycki, where they barely won a game for the rest of the season. Gab, could you see him possibly moving?
Charlie Hughes, I mean, I would love Charlie Hughes at Birmingham because I wouldn't mind a left-footed centre-half, because when we have to play Christoph Clara, Philip Newman I really like, actually. He's had a great first third of the season for us, but it's meant Clara's had to move to the left, and sometimes he's not entirely comfortable there. I think I'd prefer him to be on the right. So if we brought in a really cultured left-sided centre-half, I'd be big on that. But
how much money have you got?
We'd have to pay top dollar, yeah. Well, I think might be more one for a Premier League club, I would imagine.
What about loanees potentially returning? We should consider that as well.
Well, stick with Hull. The hottest loanee at the moment is Joe Gelhardt, and you wouldn't see, despite his brilliant Championship form, you wouldn't see him going back and playing in the Premier League. And we were mentioning big ticket prices. Tom Cannon was redirected, wasn't he, in the middle of a season and taken? What was he? No, I'm misremembering that, but he was signed certainly in the middle of a season by Sheffield United. James Bree is another one where Southampton may have a new manager by the time we get round to January. I'm sure there's a break clause in that, and he looks very capable at Charlton, doesn't he? Whether that might be a back home and utilised there, or you mentioned Tom Fellows playing wing back though, so maybe there's not a requirement there. But yeah, sometimes those big bully teams at the top of the league can steal your best loan player. I always remember Conor Gallagher was at Charlton, redirected to Swansea. Charlton got relegated.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, was it last summer, Mark Robbins at Stoke recalled, was it Baker in midfield from loan? And he did really well. It's the thing of a new manager, getting the players back together to have a look at them, isn't it? So that's certainly worth considering. And a name that I saw was out of contract in the summer caught my eye, Gab, because this is where players can make moves as they kind of cash in and last chance for the clubs. Anis Mehmeti at Bristol City caught my eye.
I've been really impressed by Anis Mehmeti. He's somebody I've had my eye on. Wycombe Wanderers did really well to poach him from Woodford Town back in 2019.
At Norwich as well before that, wasn't he?
He was, and then dropped into non-league. So Wycombe showed a real eye for a player, and he went into their B team setup and then impressed. And I think Ainsworth imparted some really good values of him, because he's become a very aggressive player against the ball, very agile as a creator as well. He can spin away from opponents. So I think he's a really exciting footballer, Anis Mehmeti, and a big future, I think, with Albania. I could see him moving, but I could also see him continuing to impress under Struber with Bristol City.
I think he has earned, and we'll get his Cuba Gooding show me the money, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think the new contract might be coming his way there at Bristol City. Can I just throw? I know I talk about Imran Loser a lot. I just think he's a very peak Championship player. That even though I know you've been looking at contract lengths, even though the value's not there and the leverage is with Watford. You know, he's Moroccan international, can play at the top level, can't he? And someone maybe not Premier League, maybe across Europe or what have you, might want a bid. But if you're a Watford fan, you do not want to sell that guy at the moment.
Absolutely. It's those Premier League clubs, you just don't know when they're going to pull the trigger. It could be in January, it could be Europe.
Can't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely right. I think we've covered most of the big names. If there's anyone you think we have missed out, please get in the comments down below, like and subscribe while you're there. But we'll be back on Monday for the Sportsman Untitled. So we see you then.